Dude, what is real life right now? Did that actually just happen? I just interviewed Justin Warner. Holy cow, this is insane. I'm speechless. This is gonna be so good. Hey y'all, welcome back or welcome to the Pickle Jar. This is What's the Dill. I'm your host, Mackenzie Pickle. And today we are joined with a very special guest, the food genius of Food Network, Justin Warner.
What's up?
Thank you so much for being on the show. I am truly kind of freaking out and trying to keep it together. I always root for you on any competition, so.
Well, that means a ton. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, it's weird being like a food, it's like always a food nerd. And I don't know, I'm still kind of coming to grips with the idea that the respect for competitive chefs is now like approaching that of athletes. Like there are people that play in the MLB that like have less, social media following. Not that that's a metric that matters, than like some chefs that I know. You know what I mean? And like when I was a kid growing up, man, in what world would a chef have, more fans than a baseball player? That's insane. But I'll take it.
Well, you have several, and you're actually the first official guest of this podcast. So you're setting the bar.
All right.
No
well,
pressure.
Let's set it real damn high.
Let's jump right in. So, TOC 6 just wrapped up a couple weeks ago, and you actually have a very, very important role where you're taking notes of what every chef is preparing, so that you can relay it all to the judges and let them know how they did it and what they accomplished. What is it like for you to prepare for TOC and doing all that?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously the job. Firstly, I don't think a lot of people realize that there's some degree of physicality to it. We're generally doing 4 battles a day. Each battle, depending on the time, anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes, something like that. But there's a lot of start and stop during that. So I try and be like super lean and fit coming into it because it's an awful lot of standing, walking, pacing, waiting, etc. Not a lot of sitting, So that's thing one. Mentally, though, it really, there's no like advanced preparation. But when I get there, I always tell my wife, like, I turned into like a little monk, and I just kind of remove any distractions or anything else in my life that would prohibit me from doing what I do, which is watch people cook and talk about it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I get my head really in the game. In terms of like research, notes, preparation, there's no point. Season 1, I was like, cool, I'm going to print out, a factoid, for every single thing that's on the randomizer. But obviously not everything that is on the randomizer gets chosen, right? So for those of you who don't know, Tournament of Champions is a show where people cook and there's this machine that just spits out random ingredients, random equipment, random food styles that the chefs have to cook. And so anyway, at first I was like, oh, cool, well, I'll study all of that. But then I was like, wait a minute, like we're occupying valuable brain space with something that we don't need. So I just keep about 16 tabs open on my phone and in my brain of like whatever the current randomizer could be. And I just have those there as notes, like I think broccoli's been on there every season, so I can tell you, a couple different factoids about broccoli. And you know what I'm saying? Like after a while, like there's not really any new news to report on broccoli.
Well, perfect. It's a good food, so.
Thanks. Yeah. I had nothing to do with it. It was. I'm pretty sure it was the Chinese.
How often does the randomizer get changed in and out then? In between rounds, like you said, you do 4 battles a day.
Yeah, so in between battles, whatever the randomizer landed on, it's actually a sticker. That sticker comes off the wheel, and the art department can actually print those things on the fly. They have this like giant, it's like the kind of printer you would use for like a small auto detail or like auto like car customization, labeling. What do you call that? Wrapping. So yeah, they have that like vinyl sticker printer, and they can swap it out on the fly. So that's where it gets inherently tough is like you never know what the next thing is going to be on the randomizer, so there's no studying for that kind of test, you know?
Yeah, that I don't think I'd pass if it were a test.
I mean, not many people would, but, you know, that's good job security for me, but also,
Yeah, perfect.
you know, I don't think a lot of people realize that, you know, Tournament of Champions is a largely educational show. I think people don't realize that they're learning, you know, and wouldn't that be a nice mission accomplished if somebody else could do what we do?
The other day, somebody asked me some food-related question, and I knew an answer because of something that you had said on, I think maybe Triple G, and I was like, yeah, I'm smart. I watch
Nice.
educational content.
Hell yeah, you do. Yeah. And that's, I don't know, that's why I love working for Food Network. You know, I think a lot of cats think, you know, if you work in TV, one, you're rich, two, that's not true. But also that, you know, you've like sold out or something like that. But like, in all honesty, it's like I work in the education business, and I just so happens that we have like a cool, fun classroom, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
So along with all your work on TOC, you're known as a food genius. You seem to always know the interesting facts. Like you just said, you have a lot to choose from. So do you study at all? I know you said you did try the first season of TOC.
Mm-hmm.
Do you continue like to maybe stay up on knowledge of new stuff coming out, or is it kind of like you're just a genius and you know everything?
No. You know, it's like a knife. You got to keep it sharp. So, you know, I study. In that, like, I read the news an awful lot, and obviously I'm as on the internet as anybody else, you know. And so when I see something that I don't know about, or I see something that like makes me feel dumb, you know, then I'm like, all right, well, it's time to pursue that. And you know, that's just like a personality trait. It's just like a habit, you know, is like asking why, asking what is it, why is it, you know, so on and so forth. And that's kind of it. I don't like not knowing how things work until I get to, you know, science or Jesus, one or the other, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I love asking questions, and I feel like you can never stop learning. It's not ever a thing where you can know everything.
Yeah, and like guys even said this, like he'll say like, "Oh, Justin's forgotten more than I've learned," and as I get older, I'm like, you know, you might actually be right. Like, and I can get like pleasantly surprised because like I forgot a factoid and then I'll re-research it, or I don't know, it'll just boomerang back into my consciousness, and I'm like, oh, dope. Like, I remember when I knew that.
It's kind of like a weird deja vu sometimes when it comes back.
Yeah, you know, like I used to work in sushi, right? So I could tell you like the Japanese name of like almost any damn fish under the sun. But now I live in South Dakota. And so like I forget like pretty common, you know, if you work in sushi, sometimes what I'm saying is like it might be extremely niche, you know, for you, but in our business of working in sushi, it's very common to know the Japanese names for stuff. And sometimes I'll like forget, and I'm like, I guess because I wasn't using it. You know, I live in South Dakota. There's no point in knowing the Japanese name of fish out here. Pretty darn landlocked.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I love sushi. It's my favorite. If I have to pick one food group, that's it.
What's your favorite go-to fish? You know,
well,
you got to die with one.
It's kind of hard for me. I feel like I have to pick also based on what I can get my hands on. I'm from Georgia, and I
Right.
currently live in Georgia, so it's like salmon or tuna,
Yeah.
and I prefer salmon.
Okay, got it.
It's a lot more fatty, and I just
No,
I
fat's
feel
where it's
like
at.
I feel like you can do anything with it pretty much.
Yeah.
That or like catfish, which is not something that needs to be sushi.
Right.
But
still,
fried, it's so good.
yeah, I can vibe with catfish too.
We were talking about TOC, and you've been on it for all 6 seasons, every single episode. What made you first want to join the show?
Well, I was asked, you know, and there's kind of like an unofficial rule in Flavortown. It's like if you get asked, if you get invited to something that is part of the Flavorverse, as I call it, you better say yes, you know, or have a very damn good excuse, you know, because when Guy touches a show or does something, you know, it's magic, and he only makes bangers, you know, so it'd be like, I don't even know, you know, but like the answer is you say yes. And then, you know, the first season you never know what a show is going to be. You can prepare as much as you want, but, you know, we traffic in unscripted stuff. So you never know how it's going to work, what, you know, refinements need to be made. And The team there is just so great. You know, honestly, like season 1, season 6, it was not a ton of change, and that I think that's a sign of a good show. And you know, once I realized like what my job on that show was and the impact that it was going to have, not to mention what I get to learn, right? Because all I do is stare at the greatest chefs in the world, you know, and watch their every single move and then tell them what they did, right? So it's good for me too, right? Like not just professionally, but like I get to learn from the best, unedited, unfiltered, you know.
That's
dope.
really awesome. I
Yeah.
get jealous of it every single time I watch. It's become like a family tradition for me and my mom. We
Right.
don't live in the same town anymore, but we text like every single Sunday. And we're like, "Did you see TOC? Did you see
Sure.
what happened?" You know,
Yeah, it's real, man. It brings people together, and you know, it's like TO season. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. What's your favorite aspect of TOC? If you have to only pick one.
Well, you know, it sounds self-serving, but I like that there is a color commentator. You know, myself. I love Tiffany, and before Tiffany, Simon. I just think that that's a cool position, and you know, back in the days of Iron Chef, there was always like a floor reporter.
Yeah.
And I just think it's nice sometimes to, you know, get a little bit of opinion mixed in with your facts, or a little bit of like, I call it flavor, which is weird.
Yeah.
But, you know, a little bit of flavor that is different, you know. And I think Guy is very, very smart about that. Like, you know, if you look at diners, drive-ins, and dives, it's always Guy and somebody else on the screen, right? Generally, you know, Guy does the intro, and then Guy is with somebody else. So, you know, he's very good about sharing camera time, camera space, etc. And I think he knows that creates more flavor, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and if it was just me, you know, it would just become the nerd show, you know. And so, like, I need Guy. Guy benefits. I don't think Guy needs me, but Guy benefits from me. And
As a viewer, it's very helpful to have, like you said, floorboarders or the commentators, because it kind of makes it more relatable. Like you said, it's a learning experience, but I feel like it helps separate the gap of TV and viewer a lot more. It kind of bridges it.
yeah, well, you know, that's an interesting observation, because I'm one of the few. That position is one of the few, other than Guy, that is directly explaining information to the viewer. Right? When the chefs are in what we call interview, when they're narrating what they're doing, you see that, you know that. Like, they could just get up and, you know, move their mouth,
Yeah.
and then it would cut to exactly what they're doing. So I'm going to start cooking my green beans. Cut to cooking of green beans, right? But when it comes to us, I'm talking directly to, like, you, right?
Yeah.
I'm not narrating things in space and time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, honestly, that might be my favorite aspect of the show as well. Besides the randomizer, it is just so insane, and it makes the show unique, as well as y'all on the floor doing everything. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, I first became a fan of yours through watching you compete and judge on Guys Grocery Games.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I feel like there's a little bit of similarity in, you know, all the tricks and all of the little insane challenges, everything that you do on Guys Grocery Games sort of transitioned into TOC. It's just a little more sophisticated on TOC. But I want to know, how would you compare your experience on Guys Grocery Games versus on Tournament of Champions?
Well, so I'm the kind of cook that I do better the more confined I am, right? That doesn't sound like it, like me, right? But if you tell me make the best duck pot pie you can, you know, you've cornered me, right? Now I have to work within this duck pot pie sandbox. You know, I can do that so much better than make lunch. You know, like
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it's just because, like, I do better with limitations. And I always tell people that, you know, competitive cooking is simply about answering the question. So the question is, on TOC, what are you going to make that involves X, Y, Z, etc., you know? Grocery games, though, the answer to that question can be a lot more nebulous and a lot more subject to interpretation. So I think TOC, for some people, could actually be, I'm not going to say less challenging, it's extremely challenging, you know, and we're kind of splitting the hairs of what is challenging. I'm just saying, for me, the way I think and compose dishes, grocery games is a very hard show for me. It's very hard for me when I'm cooking. Judging, love it.
Yeah.
Watching on TV, love it. No problem. Easy peasy. Comes naturally. But cooking with games, I think the games are just a lot more mental, and oftentimes there's not just a checklist. TOC, you have the checklist, but you're also going up against head to head,
Yeah.
instant sudden death, against one of the other greatest chefs in the world, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. They're both insanely difficult shows, but I think that you got to prove that you can smash Triple G before you can get to TOC.
I know that so many people are like me, just viewing at home, and they see a challenge, especially on like Triple G or TOC. Me and my mom do it all the time, and it's like, oh, what would I do if I was in their shoes and I had this challenge? It's definitely not accurate at all of a representation, because like the nerves that y'all must be going through and all of those different challenges, as well as Guy like laughing in your ear about to do like something else diabolical, seem insane.
Yeah, it's tough. I just shot a show that I would say it didn't seem as high stakes, and I was competing, and I was like, wait a minute, is it not as high stakes because I'm used to this and I'm broken? Because anybody else would be like losing their mind over this, But for me, I get nervous even when I'm not up for elimination or something like that, and I think that we all kind of do. Like, there's no amount of seasoned in terms of being a competitive chef that is enough to be like, oh yeah, cakewalk, no problem, walk in, walk out. I feel like any chef who says that, at least any chef on TOC who says like, yeah, I'm not nervous about this at all, they might be lying.
Yeah, they're cut, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to look like a buffoon, right? And we're fortunate we're in the edit, as we call it in reality TV. The Flavorverse is very kind in the edit and rarely, hammers in on like, what did you do wrong? Yeah, we try and gloss over it really, and make people happy. No one wants to watch somebody make a terrible mistake. It's not good. Doesn't feel great. That's why you have Bravo.
Yeah, that's true. So you're also known as the Wildcard on Guy's Grocery Games. That's your nickname. I feel like every single time you're introduced, Guy says it at least once.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it comes from your unique approach to food, and like how you always have an interesting fact, or you're always doing something that everyone's like, what is Justin doing over in the corner? Like, you just are really innovative. But I want to know, has there ever been a dish that you've either made yourself or that you've judged that was even like too ambitious, too crazy for you, that you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, like, I made a lot of weird stuff, and that hasn't even made it on TV. There's maybe sometimes good reason for that,
Yeah.
One of my cooks and I did a Salvador Dali inspired dinner, and we cooked recipes from his like insane cookbook, which was just like, it's worth a Google anyway. I've done weird pop-ups where food is not necessarily even there to be consumed; it's there to be thought about.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's vintage me, but there's a video called Underfinger. If you Google me and Underfinger, I made a wearable charcuterie glove.
Wow.
Kind of like Lady Gaga's meat dress, but better.
Oh,
and tastier. So yeah, I don't know. If I'm not like scraping that ceiling, why am I doing it? I like things to be borderline like too much all the time. In terms of weirdest things I've ever eaten, somebody, at least on a competitive show, somebody pureed okra once. Yeah, I'm talking to a Southern person, so
Yeah.
yeah,
That's like blasphemy for me.
I don't know what they were doing,
You gotta fry
or
it.
what they thought it was going to be, but it was like green Elmer's.
That was probably the slimiest thing on the planet, and I'm thankful I didn't have to try it. Sorry
Yeah.
for you, though.
Hey, it's all good. I will try everything. And honestly, there's no ingredient that I like don't like. The only thing I don't like is like bad technique or bad vibes.
So that's what I was going to ask. Are you picky at all? But you just
Nah.
said there's not a food you don't like, so...
Yeah, I mean, the older I get, I think the more entrenched I become in what I want as a habit. Like, I probably eat more like pizza, hot dog, junk food, than almost anybody I know. And it's just because, like, at this point, like, when food is such an important part of my life, and when it occupies so much real estate in the noggin, I'm like, just give me calories like immediately, faster. The time required to eat and to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like I either want it or I don't. And so like as a new dad, my kid's 2, I'll sit down and I'll eat a little bit with him, but then we'll go do tub time, bedtime, and then I'll come back down and like and eat.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm not monitoring other people, and I'm not. That's the thing, man. You shoot a food show, the last thing you want to do is eat.
I struggle finding time to cook just in general, so I can only imagine when it's like your entire job, life, you're kind of surrounded by it, that actually cooking for yourself would be a little exhausting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's never a problem, but the thing is like when you know how to make things tasty, you just make things tasty yet easy. So like tonight we'll probably have a can of weird fish on top of rice with some cucumber, avocado, scallions, Japanese mayo, crunchy stuff.
That
and
sounds great.
Yeah, it requires like zero cooking. Is delicious and relatively nutritive as well. So that's what we're going to do, and it literally is just opening cans and putting condiments on it.
Yeah, well, ship me a plate.
All right, you got it.
But you did mention that you're a recent dad, new, your kids too, and
Yeah.
I follow your Instagram.
Aw, thanks.
You have a beautiful family. It'll seem like you have a lot of fun. How do you balance doing all the cool stuff with Food Network, your own personal stuff, with spending time with your family?
It's tough, and having a kid, man, changes everything. Changes your whole perspective on the value of your time, and also the work that you're going to do. And so, like, I've told, like, companies, like, sorry, I'm fiddling. I'll just tell them, like, look, no. The answer is no. Like, it costs X amount to get me to leave my family and my operations here. And if you can't meet the list of requirements that I have, then sorry, we're just not doing it. And, like, there's no more, like, working for exposure. Like, that's never going to happen ever again. And, like, you start to just really think about it, and like you're a lot less rock star about stuff, where you're like, yeah, I'll just power through on a red eye. No, forget it. Like, I'm flying during daylight. I'm flying in a big comfy seat, and I'm also not going to pay for it. Whoever's asking me to leave my family will. And I don't know, I just set those out as goals where I was like, what are the things that annoy me the most about my job? And I just try and correct it, or demand that it be whatever is annoying me about the job be better. So, like, would I absolutely love it if TOC was shot in my neighborhood in South Dakota? Absolutely. But I can't change that, and I can't change where they're going to shoot, but I can try and influence every other factor about it, In general, like, that job is so cush. Like, it just sucks to be away. That's the only thing, it just sucks to be away.
Well, it's good that that's the only negative that you've got about that.
Yeah, honestly, like, I have they give me a nice trailer. They give me great wardrobe. The team is spectacular. Obviously, Guy is the consummate host, There's really nothing, like, the work is not even that. It's mentally taxing after we shoot an entire season. But I'm just saying the conditions that they give us to do that work are top-notch.
That's really great to hear. I mean, I've only been on set a few times. I did some background acting a little bit, and great experiences, but sometimes 13-hour days are not fun, and sitting on a set for that long is a long time. So I'm glad. I mean, I can only imagine for y'all who are on camera, on your feet all the time. That is insane.
I mean, there's a reason not everybody does it, right? And because it's difficult, and if it weren't difficult, everybody would do it. And so, like,
Exactly.
I take a lot of pride in that, When I was young, it was just like younger, before I was a dad, it was always just like, cool, I'm on TV, let's go, like, let's make it cool, fun, and I never really put like the emotional thought into it of like, how comfortable is this gig? How comfortable is the job? What is the like risk reward value? All of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Is this like a great use of my time? So yeah, I'm like very much in a place where I'm fortunate that I can be pretty choosy about the work that I do. That's because I have a family and I love them more than work, obviously.
You spoke about like, you have a trailer now and a great wardrobe, all this stuff, and you're in a place where you can be choosy. But it wasn't always like that, I'm assuming. You came from Food Network Star. It's where you like first originally got your like big break, so to speak, as people call it.
Yeah.
But in just 3 words, how would you describe your entire career journey?
Oh, damn, really? You know, it's just like I barely made it out of high school. So, really anything I've done since then has, in my opinion, been like good fortune. You know, there are a lot of people that work really hard and study really hard, and fate doesn't smile upon them. So I'm just like, oh, damn, really? Like eternally blessed, still constantly surprised that good things happen. I don't like expect anything. And I think TV is great because you can think you're on top of the world, like, oh man, I just won Food Network star. And they're like, yeah, like, cool. You're 27 and you can't sell Buicks and Rolaids and stuff that an older, if you look at the ads on Food Network, it's for a demographic that I'm rapidly approaching. So anyway, I think you get my point there is, like the hurry up and wait, also like applies to life. And I just, I'm like a forever student, and just always trying to, I don't know, observe what's awesome and be thankful for it and, pass on the vibe to my kids and those around me, leave people better than I found them. I don't know, So like, I don't know really even how to describe the career. Sometimes I'm just like, everything I've ever done in life has like culminated to me saying, well, goat have X amount of vertebra. You know what I mean? Like, what? Oh, damn, really?
Insane.
Yeah, like,
Those are
okay.
a perfect 3 words.
Yeah, so I always just say like, not bad for, almost a high school dropout,
Well, you've definitely been super successful, and you have a ton of fans. I was talking to someone about that the other day, and she said that she had a nerd crush on you. And I was like, that's so real. He's my favorite. I do want to ask you, this is just like crazy. Is that a Fantastic Four hat that you're wearing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I did work for Marvel. I actually worked with Rhett and Link, too. I see him in your background there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you can Google it. They were on a show that they might have actually taken it off the internet because the show was so bad. I hosted
Inside
it.
Eats?
No, it was called Snack Talk, and they were guests on the show, and we like played some games and did some silly stuff.
I need to look that up then.
Yeah, it's not my greatest
it's
work,
still
I
on
promise
there.
you. If it's still out there, yeah. Something tells me they might have like zapped it.
Yeah, that's like, this is crazy. Worlds collide. I'm a huge Marvel fan. That's how I started doing this, and I'm a big Rhett and Link fan. I met them last year, and
Oh, sweet.
they're really cool.
Yeah,
that's
they're
always
they're
pretty
very
cool.
good dudes, super humble and smart. And they put one of my internet friends on, Josh, the mythical kitchen guy.
I have his cookbook.
Yeah, and so like I watch his moves on the internet, and we like hat tip each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, speaking of Fantastic Four, then, have you seen Thunderbolts?
No, I haven't. I need to. And there was a time when, I would be the absolute first in line, but I got stuff to do, man. You know what I'm saying? And I do actually, somebody gave me a Thunderbolts poster that I'm deeply in love with, and somebody gave me a Thunderbolts Wheaties box.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so
I know.
jealous.
Bragging now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely get to it. I like to try and spread this gospel that fan is short for fanatic, and to be a fanatic to me means like I'll follow you off a cliff, like, and like if I'm into something, like I'm into something for life. I don't care if it's critically acclaimed, good, bad, whatever, and I don't care how old I am. If I like something, I like it, like I like Dr. or Lord Business from the Lego movie, so he's on my desk, and I like silly wrestling monsters, so I have it, and like I like
say-
Fantastic Four. I've watched every Fantastic Four. I will continue to watch Fantastic Four and continue to give them my support because, like, I don't know. I think storytelling is rad. I think superheroes and villains and bad guys and good guys and imagination, I probably wasn't the like hugest fan of the original new Star Wars when it came out, but that became the Star Wars for a whole generation of kids,
Yeah.
and then the newest Star Wars, like that is becoming Star Wars for a new generation of kids. And like, who am I, like, am I a fan or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a fan, I'm going to support this
Yeah.
endlessly because I think it
That's
just
like-
makes the world a better place.
Yeah, all my friends think that I'm way too obsessed with Marvel just because, I don't really think that there's like a bad movie, it's like subjective. It depends on, like, you can look at a Rotten Tomatoes score for something and it'd be horrible, but like I'll be like, that's my favorite movie from my childhood. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that's how, I mean, I'm going to be in the theater every single Marvel movie. I don't care if the last one was bad or if the last one was Avengers Endgame. Like, it's going to be great. And it's also like it brings people together online. You know, they talk about things and
Yeah.
it's really cool. But I was like, that's got to be what that is. That
Yeah, 100%.
iconic logo.
Yeah, that was before they were making a movie, the new movie. You know, I had this Fantastic Four hat.
I will say, too, I did meet Guy one time. Guy is my favorite, and I'll tell you this story because I didn't get to tell him this because I was like, he might actually think I'm insane. To my college, anyone that met me in college, all 4 years, they associated me with Guy, and that was like my name. And it's because that I dressed up as him so many times for random things, like all over the place, not just for Halloween, like would go to class, anything. And it got to a point where like two people, like I passed them one time, they didn't know that they both knew me. And they were like, I have this friend that really likes Guy. And they were like, Mackenzie? Like, that's who it is, you know? And it became a running bit where I'd be like, oh, I can't come to this thing. And then I'd show up as Guy and be like, well, I'm here for her, you know?
Right.
I showed up and took my, like, official club portrait photo dressed as him. That was the highlight of everything. And I just feel like I had to share it with somebody. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure so many people that y'all encounter or see probably are dressed as him.
Yeah. I mean, it happens more to Guy than myself, but you know, we understand that it's flattering. You know what I mean? And I think we're grateful. I think one of the smartest things that Guy has ever done is you know, embrace the meme. You know, and like some chefs just take themselves so seriously. You know, they can't laugh or have a funny. You know, or they would be like think about how many chefs there are in the world that people don't cosplay as. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you know you have, like, an iconic swagger or style or vibe, you know, is when someone can try to imitate you and be recognized as you, you know?
Also, my mom would be very mad at me if I didn't say this. She said she's rooting for you on the Triple G GOAT tournament.
Oh, dang, I'm rooting for me, too.
She's really excited. I am, too.
You know, no spoilers on that show. But you look at the lineup, and there's only one person with 2 TOC rings. I'm just saying this, you know?
Yeah.
Honored and flattered to be a part of that, but oh, damn, really? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
the tournaments are definitely my favorites. I love seeing all of y'all together on Triple G, especially just like, you know, whether it's an all-star tournament, superstar, or GOAT tournament, because not only are y'all the best of the best, and you can actually teach us while you're cooking, while you're doing these challenges, but also, like, y'all are like a little family almost. Everybody seems to be like making comments, and it's kind of fun for me at least to see this like close-knit group of people who are just happen to be competing against each other.
yeah, I always say it's kind of like the WWF minus it being fake. You know, it's kind of like professional wrestling in that, like, we're all one family, and, you know, some of us are going to win, some of us are going to lose. And, you know, it's just how it plays out. And, like, the rivalries are real, but also, like, we're entertainers, right? Like, we know how to stoke, you know? And, like, yeah, it's just a hang, you know? It's a wild and very small club to be part of, but I'm just so flattered that I am in it, you know?
Well, it's definitely so much fun to watch, and I won't keep you any longer, but I have one more question for you. It's arguably the most important question of the entire podcast.
Uh-oh.
What's your favorite type of pickle?
Clausen Dill sandwich stacker. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
sliced the long way. I don't know why, but that's to me, that's like my platonic ideal American style pickle. If we were going in the world of pickled things, I could go kraut, I could go kimchi. You know, I mess around, you know what I mean? That's part of the problem is, like, I don't have, like, favorites. What I will say, though, is that, like, it's got to be a real special occasion for me to love a bread and butter.
I feel the same way about sweet pickles.
Yeah,
in general.
I don't like sugared vegetables. And I know that cucumber is actually a fruit, and it's, you know, the same family as the melon. Its functionality in food, the cucumber, is not that of a fruit, right? You don't use a cucumber for its sweetness, so, like, don't amplify what ain't there already. You know what I'm saying?
I agree wholeheartedly. So many people assume that I like every single type of pickle because that's my last name. And further from the truth. I'm probably the most opinionated out of anyone.
Yeah, I also, and I don't know that Clausen does this, but I like Clausen because they are, I would call them like half sour. They're not all the way pickled, and they're more refreshing to me than they are a condiment. But like I actually love like lacto fermented pickles, like true honest to God fermented pickles, not just like hot vinegar dumped over a vegetable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or fruit in the case of cucumber. But I think you see where I'm going, you know? Like, I too am probably a pickle elitist.
I need to try to actually start pickling things because I'm kind of a fraud that I don't do that, I think. But
Well, you'll get there. There's a great, it's called Sour Crock. Look it up, and it's a great little fermenter. It's a great little pickling vessel, and they give you, like, a recipe and whatnot. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at like how easy it is to ferment things with great results. I'm actually sitting next to a 5-gallon bucket of fermented stuff. It just sits here and gives off gas.
that sounds like a really cool addition to your room.
Yeah, it's not the coolest scent, but you know, it's okay. Whatever. This is just my office, so I can do what I want.
I mean, that's all the questions that I have for you. Thank you so much again for being on the show and giving us some insight into your world. Is there anything that you'd like to promote or shout out? I know we kind of teased the Triple G tournament, but any projects?
You know, just that I'm in my restaurant right now. So I have a natural wine bar and a ramen shop in Rapid City, South Dakota. And if people are doing any traveling in the coming months, headed out this way, maybe going to Yellowstone or something like that, stop in and say hey, you know, and also like, you know, be cool, reach out, say what's up, you know, like you don't. You know what? You DM'd me and said like, "Hey, you do a good job," and I was like, "Cool. Like, let me know if you do a podcast or something, right?" And then we just did this. You know, we're all just normal people trying to make the world a better place, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that you did bring up the podcast because I actually had a freak out when that happened. But you're right. I mean, we're just normal people trying to actually maybe let somebody learn something or have a good time at the very least.
Dang, what a concept.
You know, I'm like, if nobody gets anything from my reviews or videos, I at least hope they laugh or smile or know that they're cared about in some way.
Hell yeah. That's what making things is about.
Right. Like, that's all the creative process really is just, hey, world, what's up?
Yeah, what's up?
Thank you again so much. I'm excited for the Triple G tournament. Everyone, go to Justin's restaurant, go to his Instagram, say hi, and I keep saying thank you, but thank you seriously so much.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Great interview.
Thank you very much. First one down.
Hell yeah.
So I hope that you enjoyed this episode of What's the Dill? Yo, crazy. Our first guest. How'd you like it? I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I am so thrilled and still, like, low-key kind of shaking about it. Pickle's pick of the week is American Wedding by Frank Ocean. It's just so vibey, and I love it, okay? I love how it samples Hotel California. I think it's perfect. It meshes really well together. It just... I can't even form words right now. This is crazy. Thank you so much for tuning in, however you decided to do so. I am so grateful for the opportunity to interview one of my favorite celebrity chefs, one of my favorite people to watch on TV, and it's all thanks to y'all watching, truly, genuinely, and thanks to Justin, too, for being such a great sport and for being so willing to talk to me about his life and what he's got going on. I mean, I am so humbled and so blessed and genuinely just so thankful. So I just, wow, that's all I can say, wow. Please, y'all, don't forget to like, comment, follow all the socials, and share with your family, friends, with everyone all over social media. Spread the word about What's the Dill. Thanks again for all your support, all the encouragement. It's time to close the jar. See you next week. Bye.